and I was terrified. Terrified because I know William wouldn't cope.
Keep it quirky.
Hello, I want to talk a little bit about what it was like to get my son's EHCP, which is an educational healthcare plan. These new educational healthcare plans replace the old statements. There are still some children that have the old statement, what they called a statement, and now they are called an educational healthcare plan, which is, as far as I can tell from a parenting perspective, the same thing with a different name. But I'm sure there are actual differences beyond that I'm not aware of. But it took a long time to get William's EHCP, and I've heard that from a lot of parents, and it was quite a battle. And I know that there are other parents that have a much harder battle than I did, but even though we were never refused, first of all, it's a 20-week process. For us, they took a lot longer. I swear it was coming up for a year. It really must have been from my first applying to them actually saying, yes, he's got his EHCP and having it all finalised. So if you're going through the process now, you're in for a long haul. We're actually based in Kent, so I'm sure it will be different from wherever you are and whoever is dealing with it. But here, it was a long process. First of all, we sent off our forms, our first application forms. Actually, I'll go back a little bit further than that. The school he was in, although it was an absolute fabulous school and he had amazing support, and I would never have sent him anywhere else. I have no complaints really, but what happened was I was sort of waiting for the school to apply for an EHCP, and I was told by one of the heads that, or the head at the time, that they were gathering evidence for putting forward for his EHCP. And then when their headship changed, I actually found out that that had never happened, or perhaps there was some miscommunication somewhere. But that delayed the process because nothing was happening. I thought wheels were turning, and they weren't. So hitting my head against the wall started then, really. But then I was told, which I had no knowledge of, never having done this before, I was told that I could apply for it myself, and that actually was a quicker route because it's more difficult for the school to apply. They do have to have all this evidence and explain why they feel this child needs this, whereas a parent can just fill in one form and get the ball rolling. So that's what I did. And I waited. And waited and waited, and nothing happened. I heard nothing, the school heard nothing, and when the school then prompted me, actually, I chased it, and the council had apparently never received the form. So I applied for it again, and a few weeks later or about a week later, I got the form come through and sent it all off, and I forget the details now because it was about a year and a half ago. But then sent the second form off, and the ball was then finally rolling, and from that point they have, I think, 6 weeks to assess whether or not they're going to do an assessment, which just seems mad to me. It seems mad, but I guess they have their reasons. So we went through 6 weeks of them assessing whether they're going to do a full assessment, and most people who apply at that point, they say, no, we're not going to assess him fully for an EHCP or her. And we were lucky enough that they actually said, yes, okay, we are going to assess this child for their EHCP. Then we waited and waited, and I think the only thing that happened was an educational psychologist, visited the school and had a chat with William. That he wasn't observed in class, and I feel he should have been, and he wasn't seen by anyone else. It was literally just my own report, which was an initial report. Then the educational psychologist that came in and spoke a little bit to the tutors, the teachers, and then had a bit of a one-to-one. William does really well on one-to-one because he's in a classroom with one other person, in a room with one other person, and he's not distracted by all the noise. He's in an environment where he copes. And they did some educational psychology assessments on his ability. Now, William does really well at that kind of test. It's not a test that's based in the national curriculum. It's not a test that a school would do. It's highly logical. It's talking one-to-one where he does, and none of it was written. It was talking. William doesn't write, and if you try to get him to write, then you see the difficulties, then you see the autism. But William excels at it. So he did really well with the educational psychologist, and the report was glowing. This child has no educational problems. Well, he doesn't write, for a start. He doesn't want to take part in education. He doesn't work in the education system as it is. So how can he have no educational problems? He has the underlying ability, and that's what the educational psychologist pulled out of him, which is fantastic. He does have that underlying ability, but you put him in a classroom and the autism gets in the way. And that didn't come through, and I feel he should have had a lot more in the way of assessment. He should have had in-class observations. He should have had a occupational health person, therapist, involved. He should have had speech and language. He should have had all these people putting that input in to his EHCP, and it never happened, and I was really disappointed. So looking back, and what I would advise other parents to do is make sure at the beginning of the process you know what your council plans on doing, because mine only sent that one person, and the school were quite shocked. They then put together the council then put together this EHCP that was based on this one report and didn't reflect his actual struggles at all. He has a lot of sensory issues, and they all get in the way of his learning, and none of his sensory issues were addressed. I was given the reason that it was because it was based on the first written report I did, and I can see where they just copied and pasted bits into his final plan from what I'd originally written, and a report that the school did. However, the report from the school wasn't fully reflective because it wasn't directly from his one-to-one support. It wasn't from his class teacher. It was from the SENCO, which is great, but it's all these steps removed from William himself and his actual needs, and some of it was massively generalized and outdated, and it didn't reflect him. You put those three things together and you could have been talking about another child. So actually what I did was I practically rewrote the whole thing myself. I did try and include what they did there, but I was terrified at the time that they were going to try and put him in mainstream school, and I requested a meeting with the lady that was dealing with it at KCC, his caseworker there, and she was so difficult to get hold of. Absolutely lovely lady in person, but again, it's the system that's not working. The education system wasn't working for William, and the EHCP process system at KCC is not working. I think they are massively understaffed, and they have too high a workload, and it's like anything in this country now. Everyone's just under so much pressure that they can't do their best for that individual child, which is really sad, because ultimately that's what these systems are put in place for in the first place. But that's a whole other thing. Back to our experience, and it was that I requested a meeting with the lady, and that was based on a couple of phone calls where the lady had put across that she felt that William needed to go to the local mainstream school that has a unit to help people who are autistic, and I was terrified because I know William wouldn't cope. He needs specialist support. He needs a specialist school with very small classes. The local school that has a specialist unit, and I've heard really good things about it, but it's not right for my child. I'm sure it's right for many, but not for mine, because he would still be expected to go into mainstream school and to walk around the school with all the noise and all the lights and the children, and there's no way in a million years they'd find him hiding in a bush, shaking and slapping himself. It's never ever going to work. They terrify him. It would absolutely terrify him. I'll be back in a minute. Say hello. No, okay. This is our daughter, and she'll be joining us for the rest of the video because she's just woke up. So I was saying that what was I saying? I was saying about William wouldn't cope in mainstream, and with the EHCP I was terrified that they didn't understand his needs, and I needed to get across that he was not going to cope in mainstream. So I, as I said, pretty much rewrote the whole EHCP. I put days and days of work into it and tried to keep it still very professional and sounding like I hadn't written it. And what I did was my additions I'd highlighted in yellow, and I think I tripled the length of the document. It ended up about a 30-page document, if not more, and I was very, very proud once it actually came through, and when we finished the meeting, the lady from the council, his caseworker, actually took on board everything I'd said, and she was very good at advising the few sentences where it said what certain things, and she said don't put this because of such and such, and she gave certain reasons, and I really valued her input. The school William was in at the time, the staff there were fantastic. I had one of his one-to-ones in the meeting with me, and she was really good at putting across William's needs, and we'd had both his one-to-ones and his teacher work on the EHCP with me as well. I'd had a meeting with them prior to that, before I rewrote it all, saying to them, what do you want in this? What do you feel is wrong about the draft that the council has done, and what do you want? And the work they put in was amazing, because a lot of what I'd put in myself, I was just rewriting what they felt, because ultimately they're the experts, they're the educational experts, they're the ones that are working with him in education every day, and I would definitely recommend that people work really closely with the school that their children are in. And I think I was just lucky actually to get a very good one for him, even though it was mainstream. The staff there were fantastic. So we oh, I've lost my train. Yeah, the stuff there were fantastic. So I then received a copy, the final copy of the EHCP, and was really pleased with how it turned out, because it was pretty much what I'd written and what his teachers wanted in there. So it was absolutely fantastic. I was really proud. And again, much like getting the diagnosis, when you finally get that diagnosis for your child and it feels like a huge relief, getting that EHCP felt like a massive, massive relief. It was really slow and really late, and it kept being delayed and delayed and delayed because of staff shortages and never being able to get hold of anybody at KCC, although I must admit I should have pushed a little bit harder. So that's something I would definitely do again if I had the opportunity again. I'd be there more on the phone pushing. But sometimes it's just so hard because you're dealing with an autistic child at home, as well as everything else life throws at you, as well as trying to manage getting this EHCP. But I can certainly see why for many parents it's not what they want. And to get what you want, hello, you talking? To get what you want, you have to put in a lot of work for it. It's really not easy. There's so much extra work involved in having a child with extra needs. So now we're at a stage where we have the EHCP. We still don't have a school for him, which is difficult. We got the EHCP at the end of year 6, which is the final year in primary school, in the 2-tier system. And we thought that he would have a place in a school ready for year 7 to begin. And it's now Christmas. It's now Christmas. He's meant to have been in year 7 for 2 terms already, and he's had no schooling. And he's had no tutor at home. And we're just in this limbo. And I'm stuck every day with him here, which is lovely that I get to spend that extra time with him, but he needs schooling. And I feel like now the EHCP that we have is failing him somewhat, because I was so worried that he was going to be placed in mainstream that I emphasised all the reasons why there's no way he can do mainstream, that I failed to emphasise how well he copes with certain things, and that actually there's 2 schools that I think would be absolutely perfect for him, and they've refused him because I feel the EHCP paints him in such a bad light that they feel he would be too difficult for them, which is such a shame. And I don't know where to go from here, really. But I think I've waffled on far too much already, and this little one's awake, so you're going to need some food, aren't you? Yes, you are. So I will sign off for there. I will sign off for now, and we will see them another time, won't we? Yes, we will. If you liked the video, if you found it useful, I am sorry I waffled on, but if you did find it useful, then please hit the like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos about our journey. I would like to talk in future about actually getting him in a school, because that's something that's ongoing and I have lots to say about that. And don't forget to hit the notification bell as well, because that will let you know exactly when I've released another video, so that you can come in and be one of the first people to see it. Say bye-bye. Bye.